Brad Garlinghouse just posted 3 words that tell you everything about where XRP is in its cycle. More access, more ecosystems, more utility, demand for XRP keeps growing. When the CEO of Ripple, the person with the most complete view of on-chain activity, institutional pipeline negotiations, and partnership flow, publicly states that demand is growing across 3 specific dimensions, it's not a marketing tweet. It's a strategic communication designed to signal the market at a moment when the price has been disconnected from the underlying fundamentals for 6 months, and he posted it on April 17th. The same day, XRP touched 151 for the first time since February. The same week, the Iran ceasefire negotiations advanced to a second round. The same week, Rakuten onboarded 44 million users. The same week, ETF inflows hit record April pace. This is not coincidental timing. CEOs with fiduciary obligations and regulatory oversight don't post market-moving statements on arbitrary days. They post them when the internal data they see confirms that the external narrative should start shifting. Garlinghouse's words are the market signal that the 6-month disconnect is beginning to close. Today I'm going to break down exactly what more access, more ecosystems, more utility means in specific documented terms, why Garlinghouse's public communication strategy has shifted in 2026, what the 3-dimensional growth model tells us about the stage of XRP's adoption curve, and why the people interpreting his statement as hype are missing the precise strategic message he's actually sending. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why Ripple's CEO making a short public statement matters more than most of the noise dominating the XRP conversation right now. This is not financial advice. I am sharing publicly available information for educational purposes. Always do your own research. Before we get into it, drop access in the comments if you're tracking the distribution channels expanding. Drop ecosystems if the institutional integrations are what you're watching. Drop utility if you believe real-world transaction volume is the most important signal, because Garlinghouse named these 3 dimensions specifically, and each one corresponds to a different layer of the XRP thesis that we've been tracking. Welcome back. I am the Calm Analyst. Around here, we decode what institutional leaders actually mean when they communicate publicly. Today, we're dissecting Garlinghouse's 3-word framework, connecting each dimension to documented evidence, and showing you why his timing, his language, and his specificity all point to the same conclusion. The foundation phase is complete and the growth phase has begun. Let's get into it. Let me start with access. Because this is the first dimension Garlinghouse named, and it's the one that most people don't immediately understand as a distinct category. Access means who can buy, hold, and use XRP. It's the distribution infrastructure, the on-ramps, the regulated channels through which capital enters the XRP ecosystem. A year ago, access was severely constrained. Coinbase was one of the only major US exchanges supporting XRP. ETF wrappers didn't exist. Institutional custody solutions were limited. Retail investors in many jurisdictions had to use complicated workarounds to acquire XRP at all, and wealth management platforms treated XRP as too risky to approve. Today, access is transformed. 7-spot XRP ETFs trade on US exchanges with approximately $1 billion in combined AUM. Canary XRPC launched as the first pure 1933 ACK-spot product in November 2025. Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, 21 shares, and Amplify followed. Franklin Templeton's XRPZ charges just 0.19%, the cheapest fee in the group, signaling the fee compression that accompanies institutional-grade product maturity. Morgan Stanley approved XRP for their 15,000 financial advisors to discuss with ultra-high net worth clients. Rakuten Wallet launched XRP as both a listed asset and payment method for 44 million Japanese users. SBI Japan expanded XRP access across their banking infrastructure. BNY Mellon custodies RLUSD and is onboarding Ripple Prime. The DTCC lists Ripple Prime in their participant directory. Every single one of those developments is access expansion, new channels through which capital can enter, new distribution networks that didn't exist 18 months ago, and each channel has its own ramp-up curve. The ETF channel takes weeks to months to saturate. The wealth management channel takes quarters to years as advisor-client conversations convert. The consumer payment channel takes months as users discover and adopt. The institutional custody channel takes years as mandates update. When Garlinghouse says more access, he's pointing at documented distribution expansion across retail, wealth management, institutional, sovereign, and consumer channels simultaneously. All compounding, all continuing. If understanding access as a distinct distribution dimension just added clarity to the thesis, smash that like button. because this is the dimension that determines how much capital can even reach XRP, which is the precondition for demand mattering at all. Now, ecosystems, because this is the middle term in Garlinghouse's framework and it's the one that ties access to utility. Ecosystems means the integrations, partnerships, and institutional connections that give XRP a functional role within broader financial and technology networks. It's the layer between distribution and actual usage. A year ago, XRP's ecosystems were limited. Ripple had bilateral partnerships, but most operated in isolation. Cross-border payment corridors existed, but with narrow coverage. Institutional partnerships were often in pilot phase. The ledger supported development, but lacked the compliance infrastructure that institutions required. Today, ecosystems are interconnected in ways that multiply the value of each individual partnership. Ripple Treasury processes $13 trillion in annual payment volume with native digital asset capabilities now live. Swift certification connects XRP settlement into the 11,500 bank network through 5 documented pathways: Thunes, ACI Worldwide, EastNets, Finastra, and Bank Overlap. MasterCard integrated Ripple into a $9 trillion payment network. Deutsche Bank committed $1.6 trillion in cross-border flows. BlackRock uses RLUSD as settlement for Buidl through Securitize. 5 live CBDC deployments run on XRP Ledger infrastructure. Palau, Hong Kong, Montenegro, Colombia, Bhutan. The IMF's Trust Bridges framework references XRP and XLM. The BIS Moneyflower designates space for private cryptocurrencies. The ECB's digital euro pilot has evaluated the XRP ledger as infrastructure. And the protocol-level integrations, permission domains, smart escrows, native lending through XLS66, multi-chain bridge infrastructure, make every new tokenization platform, every new institutional participant, and every new CBDC more efficient to integrate than the previous one. Ecosystems compound. When Swift certifies Ripple Treasury and BNY Mellon custodies RLUSD and BlackRock uses RLUSD for Buidl settlement and Buidl expands across chains, and the XRP ledger provides cross-chain bridging, every integration multiplies the value of every other integration. The ecosystem becomes worth more than the sum of its partnerships, because each connection creates additional value through network effects. When Garlinghouse says more ecosystems, he's pointing at the compounding network effects of interconnected institutional integrations. The trajectory isn't linear growth, it's exponential compounding as each new connection amplifies the existing ones. Comment below. Which ecosystem connection do you think is most underappreciated? Type Swift if you think the bank network integration is most important. Type BlackRock if you think the asset management bridge is biggest. Type CBDC if you believe the sovereign deployments define the long-term thesis. Type all if you see them as equally important. Because the mix of institutional ecosystem partners is what makes XRP's position different from any other digital asset. Now, utility, because this is the third dimension and it's where the rubber meets the road for value capture. Utility means the actual transactions, the on-chain activity, the real usage that generates demand for XRP tokens, rather than just speculative holding. It's what distinguishes a store of value from working capital infrastructure. A year ago, XRP utility was concentrated in a few corridors. Philippines remittances, Mexico settlements, Japan Southeast Asia flows. Real usage existed, but at limited scale relative to the total potential. Today, utility is expanding across multiple documented vectors. The XRP ledger recently recorded 5 million transactions in a single day, a 2-year high driven by real utility demand, not speculative activity. The on-chain data shows transaction growth that cannot be explained by trading volume alone. Auto-bridging ensures XRP captures value from every transaction on its own ledger. When any asset swaps for any other asset, XRP serves as the default liquidity bridge. More RLUSD usage means more XRP utilization. More tokenized assets means more XRP demand. Every transaction also burns a small amount of XRP, creating deflationary pressure that compounds with volume. Ripple Treasury's 1,100 corporate clients, Coca-Cola, American Airlines, Black & Decker, Fortune 500 treasuries, are beginning to access the native digital asset capabilities that went live this month. Each client that migrates even a portion of their cross-border flows to on-chain settlement creates persistent transaction volume that didn't exist before. Rakuten's 44 million users integrating XRP into daily commerce at 5 million merchants creates consumer transaction volume. $23 billion in Rakuten loyalty points can convert to XRP. Each conversion is utility demand. Each transaction is network activity. AI agent deployments are beginning on the XRP Ledger through partnerships like Evernorth and T54. Autonomous transactions at machine speed that stablecoins cannot handle because of freeze and clawback risks. These transactions are already happening. The scale is growing. When Garlinghouse says more utility, he's pointing at the conversion from potential to actual. The infrastructure that was built during the quiet years is now processing real volume. And real volume produces functional demand that doesn't disappear when sentiment changes. Subscribe right now, hit the bell, drop it in the comments, because the utility dimension is the one that converts the infrastructure thesis from theoretical to demonstrable. And every new quarter produces more data confirming the conversion is happening. Now let me explain why Garlinghouse's timing matters. Because CEO communication is strategic, not casual. Garlinghouse hasn't been loud in public for months. Most of his communication has been behind the scenes, lobbying for the Clarity Act, meeting with senators, negotiating institutional partnerships, participating in the CFTC's Innovation Task Force. The public communication channel has been quieter than usual. Then on April 17th, he posted, short, specific, strategic, 3 words naming 3 dimensions, combined with a clear assertion that demand is growing. CEOs choose when to communicate publicly based on what they want the market to do. A CEO who wants to calm panicked sellers posts during crashes. A CEO who wants to celebrate achievements posts during peaks. A CEO who wants to signal that a phase change is occurring posts at transition points, when the internal data shows a new phase has begun, but the market hasn't priced it yet. April 17th was a transition point. XRP just touched 1.51 after 6 months of declines. ETF inflows were accelerating. The Clarity Act compromise was done. Rakuten had just launched. The macro was showing first signs of improvement with the Iran counteroffer and the PPI miss. Garlinghouse posting at this specific moment with this specific framework is signaling that the internal view matches the external data. The growth phase is beginning, and the CEO with the most complete view of the pipeline is publicly confirming it. This is not promotional behavior. This is strategic signaling at a phase transition, and it's a signal that experienced market participants read differently than retail traders do. Now let me address the Ray Dalio Labs, Rave DAO, pump context, because it matters for understanding where we actually are in the cycle. Rave DAO went from approximately 0.28 a month ago to over $20, a roughly 7,000% move. It's the kind of altcoin moonshot that defines late cycle risk-on behavior. When capital starts rotating aggressively out of Bitcoin dominance and into small cap altcoins, it's a signal that risk appetite has shifted. XRP isn't Rave DAO, and it shouldn't be. XRP is positioned as institutional infrastructure, not a speculative moonshot. But the fact that capital is rotating into high-risk altcoins alongside XRP's quiet grind higher tells you that the broader environment has shifted from fear-driven consolidation to risk-on exploration. In risk-on environments, utility-driven assets with documented institutional backing tend to outperform the broader market once the initial meme coin rotation completes, because the institutional capital that drives sustained moves follows verified thesis rather than chasing parabolic charts. And the institutional capital is exactly what Garlinghouse is signaling is beginning to flow. The combination matters. Risk-on rotation provides the baseline momentum for the market. Institutional flow provides the sustained upward pressure specific to XRP. And the CEO's public confirmation of growing demand across 3 dimensions signals that the institutional flow Garlinghouse sees privately is about to become visible to everyone else. Let me bring this all together. Brad Garlinghouse posted 3 words on April 17th. More access, more ecosystems, more utility. Each one corresponds to a documented dimension of XRP's thesis. Each one is expanding simultaneously. And the CEO of Ripple chose this specific moment to publicly confirm what the internal data shows. Access, 7 ETFs, Morgan Stanley, Rakuten, SBI, BNY Mellon, DTCC. Distribution channels multiplying across retail, wealth management, institutional, sovereign, and consumer tiers. Ecosystems, Swift certification, 5 CBDC deployments, MasterCard integration, BlackRock Buidel settlement, Deutsche Bank commitment, partnerships compounding through network effects as each integration amplifies every other. Utility, 5 million daily transactions, auto-bridging demand, Ripple Treasury on-chain switch, Rakuten consumer usage, AI agent deployments. Functional demand converting from theoretical to actual across multiple vectors, all 3 dimensions, all growing, all confirmed by the CEO, all happening at 1.47 XRP during a market that has been dismissing the thesis for 6 months. The haters said sub-dollar. They're wrong. The skeptics said no institutional adoption. They're wrong. The bears said the thesis was broken. They're wrong. The CEO just told you directly that demand is growing across the three specific dimensions that matter most, and the data backs every word of his statement. You don't need price prediction theatrics to understand what's happening. You need the framework that Garlinghouse just provided. More access, more ecosystems, more utility. That's the thesis. That's the confirmation. That's the signal that the growth phase has begun. And when the growth phase begins, when the infrastructure that's been built during the quiet years starts producing visible results, the market repricing that follows doesn't wait for every retail holder to catch up. It happens in concentrated windows, and the people positioned before those windows benefit most. Price is a distraction, value is the reality, structure is what matters. And the structural confirmation from Ripple's CEO that demand is growing across access, ecosystems, and utility simultaneously is the most significant public signal from Ripple leadership in 2026. Garlinghouse doesn't say the obvious. He says what he wants the market to internalize at strategic moments. And right now, he wants the market to internalize that the foundation phase is complete and the growth phase has begun. In a market fueled by emotion and noise, we thrive on data and composure. Remember, haste leads to loss, while calm analysis leads to victory. Comment calm analyst below and tell me, which of the three dimensions do you think moves the price most? Access, ecosystems, utility? Because the calm investor tracks all three but recognizes that they each convert to price on different timelines. And understanding which catalyst fires when is how you stay positioned through the full cycle rather than reacting to single headlines. Like, subscribe, notifications on. I'll see you in the next one. Stay patient, stay rational, and as we always do, we don't wait for the future, we plan for it. Peace.